Hi everybody, it's JJ and we're back again for another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream. I think this might actually be stream number 90, so congrats on hitting 90, right? Thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully you guys' week ending out on a positive and productive footing. We've got quite a number of things to go ahead and jump into this Friday, so we're going to go ahead and try to get through them pretty quickly. And as always, we're excited to be able to talk about a lot of different things that we've got going on. We're going to be giving you guys some important updates. Many of you that are, of course, hopefully part of our ASUS PCDIY community might be aware of some of these updates. We've also got a number of new product announcements. As you guys know, we generally try to cover the latest and greatest items that we are going to be releasing, and so we actually will be touching on a few of those items where we've got a brand new super ultra wide, a 32:9 monitor that we actually previously announced at CES with the ROG Strix XG49WCR. So that's going to be a 5140, right? Yeah, 5140 by 1440 base monitor, so a very super wide monitor, and it's also a curved base monitor. We're also going to be having a very cool monitor that I'm really excited about, which is an update to our ZenScreen series, our portable series of monitors, although you can definitely use it as a desktop stationary monitor with our ZenScreen MB17AHG. This one's actually a pretty cool update because it's one of the first models that we're also introducing with a higher refresh rate that traditionally was only seen on our ROG Strix portable series monitors. We've also got our Prime series AP201 TG edition. That's right, we're finally going to be releasing the tempered glass edition version of the AP201 chassis, which I know a lot of you guys have been interested in if you're interested in those small form factor, medium form factor gaming builds, and yes, it will be available and white and black. We've also got a little bit of information for you. You guys have probably seen the information from Nvidia helping to go ahead and communicate the release of the latest generation Nvidia GeForce RTX 40 series based graphics cards. So we can't give you full information, but we've got just a little bit of information for you in regards to some of those new GPUs that are going to be coming up in the not too distant future. Plus, I've got a cool new keyboard that supplements a prior announcement that I talked about, which it's not gaming focused, but for those of you that are just looking for a nice, clean, maybe something stylized a little bit differently and something also low profile, you might be interested in the new K100 series or Marshmallow based keyboards that we're going to be talking about. So those are also going to be covered in the stream, and we're going to be talking about a couple of updates, as well as I think we've got a giveaway for our ROG Swift 1440p monitor. And I think probably if we have a little bit of time, hopefully be able to feature some cool builds in the ASUS PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So quite a number of things to be able to jump into, guys. So let's go ahead and see who we have joining us here with the stream. We've got Miguel joining us. Man, fantastic to have you here. Thanks so much. We've got Vitor joining us also here on the stream. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Michael over from Canada. Fantastic to always have you here. The one, the only Sue Min is joining us. Hey, how you doing? And we've also got, hey, Jose Perez. Happy to have you here, man. Stuart, hey, fantastic, man. Happy to have you here on the stream. Thank you so much. Michael's also joining us. And I think somebody noted Snef. Oh, Liquify Mods is also there. And we've got Snef also joining us. So looks like we've got a nice crowd there. So fantastic. Hey, we got somebody else on that dirt road, man. Happy to have you here. So thanks so much for joining us here on the stream, guys. If you guys can let me know, I went ahead and tweaked the volume just a little bit because I think previously in one of the last streams, somebody said that the volume level was maybe a little bit too low. So if everybody lets me know that the volume levels are good for them, that would be great. But otherwise, let's get ready to go ahead and jump into all of our updates. All right. So give me 1 second here to go ahead and just pull up some of this information, and we'll get ready to go ahead and touch on these points. All right. So 1 second just to open up. We'll open up. Excuse me. Let me open up a board site here. Okay. Thanks, volume. Excuse me, Michael. Thanks so much for letting us know that the volume is okay on your end. So the first one, guys, is just a general recap. So if you guys, of course, aware of our ASUS PCDIY group, and you also have seen actually our formal press release statement that we did issue. Of course, we have been working actively with AMD to be able to coordinate essentially new upcoming UEFI releases, which not only help to implement their max SoC voltage implementation, but also have gone ahead and implemented AMD's latest AGISA, so AGISA 1007A. That AGISA specifically is going to be beneficial if you are going to be taking advantage of essentially non-binary memory kits. So these memory kits are essentially a little bit different than the standard memory kits that are on the market, where most users were generally looking at like a 16 gigabyte memory kit, or 32 gigabyte memory kit, or a 64 gigabyte memory kit. With the new non-binary memory kits, you're going to see essentially some different size kit configurations. So you have 24 gigabytes and 48 gigabyte kit configurations. And this essentially AGISA update helps to formalize support for the CPU and for the platform to essentially take advantage of these non-binary memory kits. So if we go ahead and reference, if you guys are interested in, we have gone ahead and fully released essentially UEFIs with this new updated AGISA for all of our entire AM5 board lineup. They are all currently live. So whether you're taking a look like right here, in a moment I'll actually show you guys here on the Crosshair X670 Hero, or on different motherboards, they all currently have those UEFI BIOSes available. So those are formalized releases. They are fully good to go, so you can go ahead and download them for any corresponding motherboard, okay? And how you would go ahead and do that, it's of course a very simple process. Just head over to the service and support website for your motherboard. Once you select that, just head over to the BIOS and firmware tab, select your model, and you will see that it's listed right there with the AMD AGISA revision right with the 1007A. Now our prior formal release that also contained the max SoC voltage implementation was issued in late April. So that's this version. Take for instance like 1303, which also has that. You can go ahead and transition to this build. This is the latest formal release. It's entirely up to you. It's your choice in terms of what you're looking for. I do want to go ahead and give you guys a little bit of information though on something you might want to keep in mind essentially with this update. So we'll touch on this here in a moment. So just give me 1 second here. All right, so that covers essentially those UEFI releases, pretty straightforward. And as always, I do recommend that if you are going to be doing essentially your UEFI update, always flash from essentially a default parameters. So essentially that just means that ideally when you're getting ready to flash, whether you want to use USB BIOS flashback or you want to do it through the Easy Flash interface, or you want to do it through Windows, technically you actually can do it through Windows through our AA Suite software utility. So you actually have 3 different ways that you can flash the motherboard. I would recommend that you load F5 defaults beforehand. So essentially you just don't want to have like a PBO, like an overclock performance tuning or some form of curve optimization in place. Just set the board to defaults to make sure that that flash goes as smoothly as possible. And then from there you can go through. In some situations too, if you're coming over from a much more older release, you may also want to allow the system to reboot a few times. And once it's kind of fully rebooted, you may want to also reinstall your chipset drivers. Sometimes PCI mapping kind of works a little bit interesting in Windows, and you may want to go ahead and just reinstall the drivers and essentially lay those in, and you should be pretty much good to go. So that's pretty much all you need to account for. Pretty much straightforward in that respect, okay? And also we do want to go ahead and just alert anybody to essentially the updates that we have gone ahead and issued formally. These are available on our service and support website, and if you have questions, feel free to reach out to our service and support team. But we do want to let any users know that they're not aware. We did release a press release statement on the 15th. That 15th essentially states that we do have full coverage for users that do engage AMD Expo, AMP, DOCP profiling, or XMP profiles. And this has actually been confirmed not only for our AM5 motherboards, but actually for Intel motherboards. So it doesn't matter. So this new actually kind of statement right here is actually inclusive of pretty much all of our performance tuning platforms. So again, AMD based platforms. So if you're an AM5 user, this would be applicable to you, but also equally if you're, let's say, a Z790 user, like what I've got right here, and you had XMP enabled, you are also covered in that respect. So that has gone ahead and been clearly communicated there in our PR statement that was issued on the 15th. And I'll also go ahead and leave that in the chat for you guys. And again, if anybody has any other questions, we do have a master link that is in our PCDIY group that you can go ahead and review, or you can feel free to reach out to our service and support team. Okay. All right, guys. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and show you one item here in the UEFI. Let me go ahead and drop this in the chat right here. And give me one moment here. Excuse me. Hey JC, thank you so much. Cheer for JJ. Well, hopefully, hopefully we'll see if my team there will get me out an SL400. I would love to have an SL400. We'll see if we can see if that's a possibility, but we'll see what happens. Michael has a quick question right here. It says the ROG Maximus Z790 Extreme was said to be AOL for how long before the new follow-up can be expected? So Michael, we can't talk about essentially what we may have or under design or development. All I can do is I can confirm for you that it is correct. Right now the Extreme is essentially no longer in active production. So right now, essentially, if you're looking for a high-end Maximus series motherboard, our recommendation would be to take a look at the Maximus Z790 Hero. There is, I believe, some kind of new old stock inventory in the channel that you might still maybe see of the Z790 Extreme, or even still the Z690 Extreme if you wanted specifically an Extreme based motherboard. Of course, just because we've ended the production of the motherboard, there's nothing wrong with the motherboard. It's just sometimes we have certain boards that are essentially what we refer to as kind of a limited production run. So that's similar to kind of the Apex, which is no longer in active production, or like the Formula. Usually some of the higher end models within kind of the product stack tend to have that happen. So so they might be available for maybe 12 months or something along those. It can really vary just depending on a number of different factors, but right now the Hero would be our recommendation if you're looking for essentially a high-end Maximus base series board. Of course, as always though, make sure to keep it tuned here to the PCDIY group and the weekly stream, where if we do have any new motherboard announcements, rest assured we will definitely cover that in the group. We'll cover that on the stream if we do have any new models. Okay. Michael's asking, I own the AP201. Will the tempered glass be available for purchase separately? So, hey, Michael, thanks so much for being team AP201. I'm assuming you're essentially asking if the side panel itself, right, just the tempered glass part is going to be available independently. That is still something that we're discussing with our product management team. And we have made the request because we do know that there are some users that bought the AP201 currently that they really do like the actual full silhouette profile, the way that it's actually been designed for that maximum airflow experience and kind of that soft silhouette that gets created with all those micro perforations, but some have wanted that tempered glass. So we have made that request. As of right now, we cannot confirm that we'll actually have the tempered glass side panel available as a kind of a standalone accessory that you can purchase, but that is something that we are discussing and we're evaluating. And if that happens to be, again, we'll definitely make sure to communicate that to the users in the PCDIY group, as well as we'll have that covered here as like a new product or accessory available for purchase on the weekly stream. So the best I can tell you is just make sure to go ahead and keep tuned, and once we have an update, we'll definitely let you know about that. Okay. Hey, Zinc, is that Zinnick? Yes, that's our, we have a community group where we just have a whole bunch of users that pretty much talk about the latest and greatest from ASUS. They talk about overclocking, building, modding, general building, gaming, content creation. Really, it runs the gamut. We've got a super diverse range of users within the group. And so it's linked actually in the chat. So if you're actually watching us on YouTube or you're watching us on Facebook, you should see the link to the PCDIY group. If not, you can go ahead and search for it and it should be able to come up. But feel free to go ahead and join us there if you have any questions. And we, like I said, have featured announcement posts that pretty much come out weekly, which will help you keep you up to date in terms of any new products that we do have available. Okay. Hey, Shawanik Forum, Askid, I just covered that point, so feel free to go ahead and actually either maybe go back a little bit in the stream where I clearly talk about actually that all our users actually are covered in respect to enabling your system when it comes to if you enable DOCP, XMP, or anything along those lines. That's actually for both AMD and for Intel-based platforms, and I've gone ahead and provided the link there in the chat for your reference for our formal statement. And we've actually gone ahead and issued, since actually the end of April, but we just recently issued another new formal release, and both of those releases actually contain the max SoC voltage implementation that was defined for all motherboard partners. So yes, you do have that available to you. You can update your motherboard. And if you have any other questions, feel free to just reach out to our service and support team. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and take a look here at the next item that I want to go ahead and touch on, which is just quickly going to be in relation to the, essentially to the motherboard side, right? So right here, I've got actually a X670E board. And so this is actually running the newer UEFI. And essentially in accordance with AMD's guidelines, right, there's a max SoC voltage implementation. And essentially the reason why you want to keep that in mind is that for some users that may be putting in, an overclocked kit of memory, you may still need to potentially increase your SoC voltage to reach stability. So some users have kind of asked about that, they might not sure essentially how to go about that. And so I essentially just want to be able to help you understand how you can go in and adjust that. If let's say you go in and you try that out and you run into some form of instability. So again, the first recommendation that I always make to users is just to fully check your system at stock at F5 defaults. So that just means just get up and running, load your F5 defaults, run a system stability test. That's a great way to be able to check your CPU, your memory, your graphics card, your power supply. You can actually run, if you get like an AMD motherboard from us, like one of our Crosshair boards, they actually come bundled in with a full license of AIDA64. So it comes with a full stress test suite that you can actually run. So you can click on the start button, you can run that, and I'll show you that in a moment in Windows, but you could run that for like an hour. That's a pretty good baseline to kind of help you to feel confident that the system is running with stability. It also has a nice integrated benchmark tool tool. So you can run like a full benchmark at stock. And then once you know everything is going okay, then you can go ahead and toggle in your performance tuning parameters, whatever those performance tuning parameters might be. And one, you have a baseline to compare against. So you can go ahead and check your base results to your overclocked results, and you can see that you're getting a performance uplift, and also you can test for stability. And as always, I always stress too, is that if you are going to do performance tuning, try to do performance tuning in a staggered fashion. So that means that don't overclock your memory and let's say overclock your CPU simultaneously. You want to do actually one independent of each other. And that's just to help to make sure that if you run into an issue, you're not essentially overclocking one and running into a point of instability with one versus the other. So it just makes it ultimately easier for you when you're essentially going through that process if you kind of isolate and then verify and then go to the next one. And essentially once you know your DRAM's stable, then you can proceed that if you want to go ahead and do, you know, performance tuning with like a curve optimization or something like that, you can go ahead and do that. But ideally, I do recommend testing both of those by themselves, checking them off, and then once you've checked them both off, then you can go and you can combine them together. Okay, so let me go ahead and switch over here to this system here. Actually, it's going to be this. Let me switch over here to this motherboard. Sorry, I've got another motherboard because I also am going to be talking about a quick update for you guys that we've done to Armoury Crate. So go ahead and switch over here. Okay, guys, so you guys should see essentially kind of my UEFI environment right here. We're in the desktop, so I'm going to go ahead and reboot this. And we're just going to reboot here into a moment into the UEFI. Hey, Michelle is asking about a new BIOS for Z790. I actually haven't checked our new releases that we had posted that might have come out on Thursday, so there could be a release. But Z790 actually got pretty recently releases, actually for almost all the boards within the last, 45 days or so. So there's already quite new releases. As always, you want to make sure that if your system's running stable and reliable, there's not really any reason to update the UEFI. But if you find that there's a specific issue or a compatibility point or something along those lines, or maybe it's a brand new build that you're putting together, then definitely you want to consider updating your UEFI. And also make sure to check if you do have MEI firmware available. Sometimes users update the UEFI, but they don't update the MEI firmware, and you would want to go ahead and check those both out. Hey, Erica, thanks so much for letting us know that the audio sounds okay. Happy to have you here on the stream. All right, so hey, David, also happy to have you here. Hey, Mod by Ben, also thanks for joining us. So here we've gone ahead and gone to the UEFI. You can actually see right here that I'm on, essentially, excuse me, I already have the 6000 MT enabled, right? So I'm already running our Expo profile right here. So pretty much you're good to go. But if you scroll down here, what you essentially would want to attempt to do is you'll see right there in terms of your SoC voltage, the SoC voltage is essentially at 1.2, and that is pretty much the maximum that would be allowed in terms of our auto rule for this. But you do essentially have the ability to go up to 1.3. That is the maximum that is now defined as being available to you. So essentially, if you were to enable this and maybe you ran into an issue either doing the post or potentially essentially going and running your stability test, then your next step would essentially be to kind of go to manual right here, and you could go ahead and find like 1.275, for instance, right? You can go in essentially increments. Now your increments are technically quite tight. So technically you can go in increments of 0.005 in terms of actually the millivolts that you can go ahead and adjust. So you could actually go even much tighter between 1.25 to let's say 1.275. But generally in terms of kind of improving stability, I would probably say that that kind of jump from let's say 1.25 to 1.275 is probably a reasonable jump in terms of considering that to see about improving your overclocking experience. And where this would probably be more common is like essentially it could vary from kit to kit. There could also be factors where if you have dual rank memory versus single rank memory, the single rank memory is generally going to be probably easier to run as opposed to dual rank memory. So dual rank memory would be like a 64 gigabyte kit versus a 32 gigabyte kit. And if you also want to know a little bit more information about your memory within inside the UEFI, you can go into the SPD information here. And in the SPD information, it actually lets you read out your information for your memory directly. So you can actually see the corresponding information for your memory listed within that. So you can, of course, read that information within the UEFI environment, within the operating system environment, but it's not required, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and quit without saving, guys. So let me go ahead and just quit without saving, and we'll reboot back into the operating system, and I'll quickly go ahead and show you how you could run just like a basic stress test if you wanted to do that, to go ahead and verify that, okay? So Michael, yes, the maximum that is allowed is essentially that 1.3. Yvonne, I will be talking about the XG49WCR in a little bit, so don't worry about that, okay? I will go ahead and touch on that in a little bit. So let's go ahead and go from there. So the next thing here is if you were to, like I said, do the test, it's very simple. We're going to go ahead and just let this load up here within the operating system environment. But if you wanted to, like I said, all crosshair motherboards already come with this. It's actually part of the value proposition that you get. It's not actually covered that often, but it actually does include a full license in there. So it's nice. It's not even a trial. So crosshair series motherboards do it. You guys also can, of course, go ahead a full trial from FinalWire for 8064. It's a great utility. I do recommend it. Another great utility that is freeware and recently celebrated their newest release with version 12, and I strongly recommend considering them, supporting them financially, is OCCT. They make a great utility as well. You can see here I have the professional version and I use that as well, but here I'm just going to show 8064 because that's what comes already with the motherboard and it doesn't cost you anything. You don't even have to download it because it could be already installed on your system. But one, you can go ahead and load the application up. Once you've gone ahead and loaded the application up, you can do a couple of things. You can go and just go to the tools, and the tools will actually give you the readout information to help you confirm the actual memory. So you can see right there what the actual memory is running that. Some people also don't realize you can do this quickly within the task manager. So you can bring up your task manager, you can head over right here, and right over here, you can actually see that it does give you the readout value information. So it does this effectively, as opposed to like if you use CPU-Z, you have to do a little bit of basic math and multiply that times 2, and you'll then get your effective readout, but you can do it either which way. So then from there, just head over to the system stability test. You can go ahead and click that. You can go ahead and if you wanted to even add more stress, you could add the GPU, but keep in mind that will really slow down the UI response because you're going to be stressing the GPU, but you'll even put more load on the power supply as well as on the totality of the system. You can click start, and then my recommendation is generally to run this for about an hour. And then if you can kind of pass the full hour, that's a good point. If you now even want another tip that I would actually recommend is that there's a great utility that is called Passmark Rebooter, and it's a free utility. It's available from Passmark, and let me see if I actually have it here, guys. The Passmark utility, yes, Rebooter right here. And the reason why I like using Rebooter is you can see right here, I had it for 10 cycles right here, but I actually normally will use it for 25 cycles. And the benefit that you can actually do with this is you can set it to essentially automatically reboot continuously. This is a great way that you can test the stability of the boot experience with you kind of walking away. So if everything is working normally, this is a great way to kind of test the system and ensure that the training process and the loading process is working consistently from boot to boot to boot to boot to boot. I generally recommend usually having at least a 60-second delay. You can have this a little bit longer if you want to. 25 cycles would be my recommendation. And essentially it will let you go through that, and it will just keep rebooting the system over and over and over and over and over again until you actually are complete. And I would recommend running your stress test for your memory essentially in 2 different booted configurations. So at some point, run the stress test and then shut down, reboot your system, and then go ahead and check it again. And if you've kind of passed 2 separate times, then that's a really, really good indicator to mean that your overclock configuration is running smoothly. So that overall helps to hopefully give you a little bit of perspective, a little bit of guidance in terms of some of the overclocking kind of testing that you can do to help to kind of verify things. Or like I said, if you run into a situation where you might have memory that is no longer running with stability, you may want to try to increase that SoC voltage. That's an option that you have available to you. And of course, we will continue working with AMD and also continue working with the performance team, our R&D team, to continue enhancing and maximizing compatibility as much as we can, okay? And of course, we'll make those updates available for you to have access to them. So you can always make sure to go ahead and keep it tuned here to, again, our stream or to the PCDIY group for that information. For some quick results, if you kind of are just wondering, what I kind of run through again is just some examples of kind of what you could see. Here's an example of a 1 hour complete stress test with the X3D and then of course the 6000 MT memory running. So you can go ahead and you could see like what it would show you if everything passed. If you had errors, you would see like a whole bunch of little red markers right here indicating errors, or the system would just shut off. If you did the 8 to 64 stress testing, this was done after that test. You can see right there the duration. So again, past an hour. And again, if you had an error, it either would crash or you get like a little red pop-up right here that would tell you like an error was detected. Okay. And then another alternative too is you can run something like Cinebench, where Cinebench has a 30-minute stress test stability option, and you can go ahead and click on that for 30 minutes. And again, you can go ahead and see if everything is running through smoothly. All right. Okay, guys. So that hopefully gives you a little bit more information on that side, and you should be good to go. Let me see right here. Will AC one day be able to pull all just the data that you showed from the BIOS? So actually, AC does already actually provide monitoring value. So you can actually see a lot of that value in there. So I guess when I go back in here, I can show you this too. So this is the next part. So let's go ahead and quickly talk about the UEFI BIOS update. About the Armoury Crate update that we just released. So in Armoury Crate, if we head back over here to my system, so sorry about that, guys. Let me go ahead and open up AC. So I'm going to show you guys essentially the update that we have available that it just implemented, and it just started to roll out to broader deployment. One of the things that we've actually done with AC that we changed a few months ago is that we started doing what's called a tiered rollout. So as we actually issue releases, the releases are actually done in a kind of controlled fashion. So it means essentially we roll it out to a certain number of users. As those users essentially confirm that everything's running smoothly with them, which is already corroborated by our internal validation and beta team as well. So we already have kind of redundant layers in there to check that. We'll then roll it out to even a broader set of users, and then we'll roll it out to another broader set of users. Okay, so sometimes everybody might not see the update all at the exact same time. Okay. But what is the update? First, I think to your question, Michael, as far as what you can check, you can go ahead and check information. Now, keep in mind, different utilities will have different readout information. So you may see more kind of, let's say, data points within a utility like Ryzen Master, like hardware info, than you might within, let's say, AC. And that's always something we're evaluating as far as, how many different readouts do you want to go ahead and provide, right? But you can go ahead and see right here the frequency, temperature, usage, fan, and like voltage. So if you want to go ahead and check that information, you could go and you could toggle this, right? And you could actually see the values that are represented to you right there. So you can see that 1.252, it's also communicated to right there. Now, technically, this does not read out what's called the SVI3 readout, which would be the most accurate readout. This is actually from the Super IO controller. And that's also something that we're evaluating and seeing to try to give users even more information. But at this time, it's not reported. But with that, let me actually go and show you guys here the new update. So you can see right here, I've got a whole bunch of devices. And if I go ahead and synchronize this, when you go ahead and synchronize this, you'll see there's an option right here, and we've had this for a long time now that's called the performance mode. And so the performance node actually has now a toggle, and so you can actually go ahead and adjust essentially how much of kind of aided processing you're giving to smooth the animation within this. So probably if you're only running maybe a single device, you could notice it depending on it. Like you can definitely notice it on your keyboard, but you do have essentially more granularity. If you've got a whole bunch of devices in your system, you will definitely notice this quite a bit more. So I could maybe try to see if I can show you here on the keyboard in the system. I don't know if it'll come through with a little bit of the compression of the stream, but definitely the animation is smoothest when you're, like once you hit even standard, it's okay, but definitely even going to smooth to then going to ultra smooth, you will see just really a more smoothness in terms of the cadence and the consistency of the way that the illumination and the pattern is cycling through. So again, if you want a really, really nice kind of experience, then we do recommend that. And of course, if you want to, reduce any type of CPU overhead that you might have, then of course you can just disable performance mode and it will still be in sync and you'll still be able to control. But generally what you'll notice is not as smooth animations that are present. So this is an item that's available to you, okay? ASUS, so somebody asking about the ASUS memory. That's not ASUS memory. So we actually have something that's called an ROG certified program. And so the ROG certified program, we work with a range of partners. So we have like Tough Gaming memory, and we have ROG certified memory. So we have memory from Gel, we have memory from AData. There's been different partners at different times that have produced ROG certified kits. And so those kits essentially, usually to be ROG certified, there's like a special profile that we do a bit of optimization with. And then there's also a bit of kind of an aesthetic design alignment. So we try to make sure that the ID design looks really, really good when you pair it up with the motherboards. So there are right now ROG certified DIMMs from different partners. You can go ahead and check out our website if you're interested in seeing the different companies that do produce ROG certified memory. But of course, we work with pretty much all premier DDR5 memory manufacturers on the market. So you can pretty much pick whichever memory that you're looking for. The only thing I would ever note is to just keep in mind from like an RGB lighting standpoint, pretty much almost all memory partners on the market have native RGB lighting control within Armoury Crate, except for Corsair. Corsair does require a secondary application that has to be installed, or you have to have IQ present. It doesn't allow for native RGB lighting control. Whereas if, let's say, you had like Kingston or G-Skill, so this system is G-Skill and this system is Kingston, those natively essentially just plugging them in, the motherboard detects them, and then you can control the lighting. Okay. All right. So that covers everything there. So hopefully that was some updates for you. You guys found that information useful. So let me go ahead and just quickly move that out of the way, and we'll go over into our next updates here on some of our new products. And we're also going to go ahead and touch on, a giveaway. Sorry about this. Been dealing a little bit with allergies, and so my eyes have been just a little bit itchy. All right, guys. Okay. Okay, so let me go ahead and adjust this. Hey, Brian, go ahead and make sure, just stay tuned. We'll have more information in regard. Yeah, just make sure to keep tuned, and we'll have more information for you, okay? Let me go ahead and just shut down the system here, because give me 1 second. All right, there we go. And I'm just, sorry, going to go ahead and remove this really quick here. And that update that I showed you guys for that smoothness animation that's available with an Armoury Crate has gone ahead and been issued already. So like I said, for the most part, if you've probably already completed that update, you do have that available to you within the Armoury Crate software interface. Okay. Okay, very good. All right, and I guess I can just go ahead and just pull this back here. Just give me 1 second, guys. Thank you. Okay, there we go. All right, so now let's go ahead and touch on our next things right here. Let's go ahead and go over to our next update. All right, so next update, let's go ahead and I guess touch on our quick giveaway that we've got going on. So let me go ahead and bring up the actual link. So this is going to be, if you guys, of course, have been watching the different types of products that we've made available recently, one of the kind of most hotly anticipated products was, of course, the ROG Swift 1440p OLED-based monitor. And we've actually worked with our global team to actually kick off a giveaway. And so this giveaway started at the earlier side of the month, and it is currently still running. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of it. So let me go ahead and bring up the link right here, and you guys can get in on it. So this is going to be running, I believe, until the, let me see, the 31st, so essentially until the end of the month, guys. So right here, you can see you have the opportunity to get in on this giveaway if you're interested in it. So we are actually going to be giving 3 of the ROG Swift OLED monitor away. So that is, again, it's a 1440p 240 hertz OLED based display. So it's a really impressive display. Great if you're kind of considering a gaming monitor that's focused at gaming. So you're not necessarily focusing on, desktop productivity. You're going to be doing a lot of Windows. You're going to be moving between applications. In that regard, I would still probably be considering an LCD display just because of the superior performance in terms of text clarity. Of course, there's no concerns regarding things like burn-in over a sustained period. So there's definitely still benefits to an LCD, and potentially also even in terms of maximum motion clarity when you compare it to something like a 360 hertz display. The actual motion clarity can even be still a little bit better, although the pixel response, of course, on OLED is outstanding, and of course you have outstanding contrast post as well. So pretty much all you got to do is just follow through the links and go ahead and get entered in. We're going to be giving these away, and as I noted, this is going to be a global giveaway, so it doesn't matter whether you're over our friends in Canada, you guys are okay. If you're joining us from another part of the world as well, just make sure to go ahead and check out the terms and conditions. But this is a global based giveaway, so it pretty much means for the most part most regions will have this available to them. So pretty cool giveaway, and there's 11 days left. So let me go ahead and drop that one into the chat. Hey Bubba, happy to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us, right? Michael says, I'll be waiting for 500 hertz 4K. Wow, that's going to be definitely quite some time. Hey Mark Titherley, happy to have you on the stream, man. Thank you so much for joining us here. All right, so let's go ahead and I guess start getting ready to talk about some of the new, I guess, items. Yeah, let's go into that. And why don't you guys let me know which one should be first? I'm going to quickly touch on the Marshmallow keyboard just because it's a new product and we're not going to be talking about its release or availability. This is just the general product announcement. But again, guys, as a recap on what are our new items that we're going to be talking about in today's stream, these are the 4 items that we're going to have. Technically, 2 of them are the same with the AP201, but let me know in the chat, which one's going to be first? Do we talk about the monitor, the portable monitor, or the chassis? So let me know in the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and quickly jump into the quick update on the Marshmallow base keyboard, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. So give me a second here, and we will go ahead and take a look here. All right, so I think this should be what I'm looking for. There we go. Okay, so yeah, this should be it right here. So this will be essentially a new option that we will be having coming in. This is going to be a low profile keyboard. So a low profile keyboard can be nice for people that are essentially, they don't want to add maybe potential kind of ergonomic strain at having a little bit of a higher lift, maybe people with thinner or smaller hands. It can also be beneficial. You know, we have a big lineup of keyboards, and actually we don't usually talk about them too much on the stream in terms of our non-gaming keyboards, but we do actually have non-gaming keyboards. And this one I would say is going to be, of course, aligned with that. So if you're looking for just a general productivity, something to maybe complement your more basic setup, right? Or maybe something that's going to be also kind of maybe suited for travel, or also maybe something that's really quiet, because this is where I'd say compared to a mechanical based keyboard, which so many of our gaming keyboards are here, because you're using a scissor switch design, it's very, very, very soft. It's much more kind of like that experience you have with the laptop. So very, very quiet, quite thin in terms of its actually profile as well. So this will actually be wireless in terms of connectivity. You can see very, very high battery life. We will offer it in 2 different colors. So we actually have a green color, and then we have a little bit more of a beige color. And I believe this is oat milk, and then this is, I think it's matcha. Yeah, it's matcha is technically is the name that we have for it. Okay, you do have multiple profiles, so you can easily go ahead and switch between multiple devices. So if you want to pair this with like your laptop, your desktop, and like your phone or a tablet or whatever device might be, you can do that easily. So that, of course, can quickly be toggled back and forth, so no issues in that regard. Now, in terms of the switches, they're very well rated, especially for membrane brace, so 10 million in terms of its overall kind of ensured lifespan and its performance. UV coating, if you're wondering what is actually UV coating, that's just a coating that gets placed on there to help to mitigate essentially legend fading. So sometimes people have like keyboards like in their desk, and they have like a lot of ambient sunlight or things like that that can essentially hit there, and that can affect the legend, or essentially that what you're seeing in terms of the actual keycaps themselves. So that's what it means for a UV coating. Okay. You can see the 2 different colors right there, quite compact, quite clean, right nice. I really like this kind of soft, clean pastel design. It's really, really nice. I'd love to see maybe like an AP201 chassis with something like this. It looks pretty nice. These also complement the Marshmallow based mice that we did cover in the stream not that long ago as well. So you can kind of see how they kind of come together to provide you a really nice, clean, kind of consistent experience. And silence is also a key factor here too, because the mouse switches that we also use inside of these mice are also what are referred to as silent switches. So very, very, very quiet. Okay, you can see right there where you've got 2 levels of adjustment that you can quickly go ahead and tailor to your liking, to your preference in relation to kind of ergonomic height, right? And this is also another little cool thing, especially within this segment. It's pretty rare. I don't know of any other kind of a thin kind of basic keyboards like this that actually integrate essentially a sound dampening material, but there's actually a sound dampening material that's also been installed in there. So again, allowing for even that kind of little bit of quieter experience. It also helps to make the keyboard feel a little bit, I think, more confident in terms of when you're depressing, you have a little bit less flex, a little bit kind of more absorption there in terms of the underbody, right? So that just helps, I think, overall add to the feeling that you have when you're actually typing, right? It's a little bit of that kind of softer, more muted sound. And I'm definitely a fan of it, especially for me sometimes when I'm working really, really late at night. That's part of the reason why I really like soft linears. I'm not a fan of heavy tactile switches. I don't actually like thock on my keyboard. Let me know if you guys like thock. There's a lot of people that really like thocky keyboards, a lot of people that really like clicky keyboards. That's not for me. I really love a linear. I just like a light, smooth, consistent switch is what my preference is. All right, guys, but that is going to be the K100, and we'll be coming out with that in the not too distant future, and we'll give you guys more details on that when we're actually getting ready to release it. Okay. All right, so it looks like the feedback here from the community, Tech was telling us, okay, the monitor, Bubba said portable monitor, Erica said portable monitor, and then Michael said Uber monitor. So I think that just gets us going in the edge of just giving one more vote to the WCR. So I think we're going to go ahead and go big, and actually go really big with the ROG Strix monitor. So let's go ahead and jump into that, guys. So again, to first give the kind of high level point right here, let me go ahead and bring this up. So this is going to be a new display from us right here. It's going to be the ROG Strix XG49WCR, and price point for somebody was asking right here is that is going to be coming in at $999. So essentially about $1,000 is going to be the price point. But now let's get ready to go ahead and talk about kind of its specific features and its functions and what it's going to be bringing to the table. So go ahead and bring up some of our general images for this display. So this is going to be a super ultra wide, not even just an ultra wide, but this is going to be a super ultra wide monitor. So 32:9 in terms of the overall actually monitor. So this is pretty much almost like kind of having like two 27-inch monitors side by side. So it's a massive amount of space that you have available to you. So if you're somebody that is maybe doing like a multi-monitor configuration and you want kind of maybe that consistency of having just one big display as opposed to having multiple monitors and an arm and kind of having to line them or do anything like that, you don't have to worry about that here. There's no kind of bezels that you have to kind of hide or you have to line up. It's just one big expansive resolution. Now that's a big resolution to render, right? We're talking about over 5,000 in terms of the primary resolution, right? It is a modified resolution and it is also working at a high refresh rate. So keep in mind from a gaming side, it's going to be quite demanding. So you will need a very performant based graphics card. The recommendation would be for probably something like a high-end AMD card. So something like a 7900 XT, 7900 XTX, 4080 or 4090 class graphics card would really be kind of the cards that you would want to be looking at here for the highest level of gaming performance to align with this resolution and the refresh rate. Of course, depends on your game engine, right? If you're playing games that are much older, so it wouldn't be as demanding and you could definitely get away with it. But even when you also talk about the actual display standard that you would want to ultimately be able to drive this to, you may actually also have to look at your display specification support, whether it's going to be DisplayPort or HDMI. Okay. Now this is, as you can also see, a curved display, so it is not a flat base display. Now this does really add a nice element of immersion, but at the same time, for some, I'd say users out there that maybe are focused very heavily on productivity, they may prefer a flat panel, and that just is great, I think, for the consistency of the way that things are rendered out within kind of more linear kind of applications in terms of the layout of certain UI elements, essentially. So that is something that you also want to keep in mind. When you're looking at the base, this unit does actually have this base that is compatible with the ROG desk mount kit. So that's actually a C-clamp mounting kit that you can actually remove this portion and put a C-mount clamp. So if you don't want to take up any space with the base, you could replace that with the C-mount clamp. This also has the tripod mount at the top, which allows you to add things like a camera, a microphone, lights, even actually a secondary monitor if you wanted to. You can see that right there, where that's what that little guy is right there. That's the tripod mount. So you can go ahead and attach any number of those accessories directly on the top. And there you can actually see that curvature. It's not a super aggressive curvature. It's nice in terms of just wrapping a little bit more around to be able to give you a little bit better sense of immersion on the display. So let's go ahead and take a look here at our primary specifications. So give me 1 second to load this up here. and we will go ahead and jump into those. So here, taking a look at our high-level specs, you can see, as I noted, 5120 by 1440, so that is going to be a resolution. You then have 165 hertz. That is going to be in the overclocked mode. If you're running the standard mode, that will be 144 hertz. It does support our eLNB sync technology. That means you have backlight strobing, but the backlight strobing can work at the same time as adaptive sync. Most other companies do not have this as an option. It's either kind of adaptive sync and backlight strobing, or kind of one or the other, but you can't run them both at the same time. Now, it's a display HDR 400 monitor, and what that really means in overall in terms of you being an HDR user, if you want to use this as HDR gaming, I wouldn't make that recommendation. You would want to consider a monitor that we have that at least probably meets the HDR 1000 nit rating specification to really have be, I think, an immersive HDR experience. But what the 400 nit rating does give you is, I'd say, a higher than standard brightness level. So if you're coming from a much older monitor that might have maybe only like 250 nits or 300 nits, generally you also see that the SDR, so the standard essentially non-HDR experience, will also be brighter on this monitor. And so it just means it's going to be a little bit more punchy, a little bit brighter, just a nice experience. So that is still going to be a benefit there. Your coverage at 90% DCI-P3 is really, really nice. So that means you're going to get great color coverage that's going to be on here. DisplayPort 1.4 is going to be the preferred connection. USB Type-C, that USB Type-C can support a display signal, and it can support up to 90 watts of power. So if you want to even connect like a laptop and power the laptop through it, you can do that. It does have a smart KV-aim design that I'm going to talk about, and it also has display widget, which allows you to go ahead and control the monitor inside of Windows. So that means you can adjust things like your brightness, you can adjust your contrast, you can actually match up different settings for different applications. And then you also have an RJ45, an Ethernet connection built on here. So again, if you maybe integrate this with like a secondary device like a laptop that doesn't have Ethernet, but then you want to share the Ethernet through the cable, you can do that. So that's a pretty cool level of flexibility that is built into the display. All right. Now, the smart KVM design that we do have on this monitor, essentially what it means is that you have the flexibility to switch between these two devices, and it's quite easy. Essentially, kind of when you move over from one to another, it will automatically adjust to the other device, and you'll be good to go. You also are going to have options available to you for things like picture-in-picture and picture-by-picture. So if you want to run in, a camera, a console, secondary PC, there's lots of different ways that you can essentially present that content on your display. Okay, so that's going to be pretty cool in terms of the functionality. All right. And that's going to be, for the most part, most of what we have here in the monitor. I do want to just quickly retouch on the connectivity. So you've got an HDMI 2.0, DP 1.4. You've got 3 USB Type A ports that are on there. Okay, you've got that 90 watt USB-C, which also supports that display signal. You've got the 3.5 millimeter jack, right, which can be line out or your headphones, and then you've got an RJ45 connection on there as well. Okay, and then for ergonomic adjustment, I always like to point this out. You've got height, swivel, and tilt are all available to you on this monitor. So quite a bit of adjustment that you have there. So that is going to be the XG49WCR. And so this will be coming out in the not too distant future. So if you're looking for a super ultra wide, you are going to be good to go. Okay. So let me go ahead and drop that one into the chat for you guys. So Michael says, so it's a productivity monitor? No, it's definitely a gaming monitor. I mean, the real people that would probably be benefiting from this would be actually people that maybe they are really into something like a space sim. I think that could be a great example. You could also be somebody that's into maybe older titles, but that also have dynamic resolution, right? That might be kind of in that action RPG kind of space. So imagine something like Final Fantasy could look really awesome on this. Racing can also look really immersive on something like this. So imagine pasting something like Forza on here. So no, this is definitely not a productivity monitor, but because of just the ultra wide resolution, what we see is that there's definitely a segment of people that would also maybe potentially just love having, 2 different windows. So they've got maybe, their email or websites or a stream or something in there, or Discord, or, whatever chat that they've got going on. And then they could have the game in another window, right? I mean, it's just, you have a huge amount of screen real estate. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how you drive that, right? Because you mentioned 1000 nits. Yeah, that would be if you're looking, I think, for an HDR gaming monitor, right? So if you really want to focus on an HDR gaming monitor, my recommendation would be for 1000 nits. But the vast majority of people that are gaming aren't gaming in HDR, they're gaming in SDR. So I just want to make sure that if you are interested in HDR gaming, my recommendation is to consider a monitor that at least meets the HDR 1000 specification. Okay. Michael says, yeah, +1 for Forza. Yes, I would agree, right? Let me just quickly see. Brian says, sorry if you already said it, but this display tech, is this IPS or VA? Yeah, actually, that's a great question. Sorry, Brian, I didn't forget. I forgot to note that. So this is actually a VA-based panel. Traditionally, for most curved monitors, they are going to be VA. Now, if you are coming over from a different panel technology, I'd say the largest benefit that you have traditionally with VA is that it does have superior contrast. So generally, in the kind of hierarchy of kind of panel technology, IPS is generally going to have less contrast than VA, and then of course OLED would be significantly above all of those in terms of contrast because it's a self-emissive technology. Where that's going to be beneficial is if maybe you play more games that have a lot, let's say, darker environments, or maybe there's much heavier gradation. You can have a little bit more of a, I'd say, positive experience. This can kind of vary from user to user in terms of kind of their preference or their wants, right? IPS displays tend to probably be a bit faster than VA monitors in terms of their pixel response, and they can carry a couple of other elements. Also, historically, usually the color gamut performance can be a bit higher on IPS, but both I would say are pretty similar in terms of being able to offer bold, bright, fast, responsive panel technologies. So they're both good, but from contrast perspective, VA definitely is going to be a bit stronger than your traditional IPS. Are we going to have an ROG ARGB fan this year? I can't comment on that, but all I can tell you is, as I've noted before, we are actually working on an ROG ARGB fan, and that is something that we've been actually working on for some time. And once we're ready to talk about it, rest assured, we'll definitely let you know. In the interim, we recommend checking out the Tough Gaming fan, the Tough Gaming 120mm fan that we have now in black, and it'll be coming out very shortly in white. It's a fantastic fan and very hard to beat for if you talk about airflow to static pressure to the bearing quality, which is an advanced FDB bearing, which is very rare within that price segment. Most of the other fans on the market are probably using a bearing of significantly lower performance than what we're using in that Tough Gaming fan. Plus the 3-pack is very reasonably priced, and it comes with a very good quality controller inside the box. So that would be my recommendation. All right. Hey Nathan, actually that's not correct. We have gone ahead and already issued full formalized releases in terms of the guidance that was defined by AMD for all motherboard manufacturers. And in addition to that, we also did go ahead and already denote clear coverage for all of our users, whether they engage Expo or whether they engage DOCP or AMP memory profiles. And that has gone ahead and actually been clearly communicated on our corporate website with a formalized PR. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and check that out. I've gone ahead and already linked that in the chat already. Or if you want to go back and go to the very beginning of the stream, I did go ahead and talk about that a little bit. And of course, if you have any more questions, feel free to go ahead and reach out to our service and support team, and they can definitely help to provide you any of the other information that you might be wondering about. Hopefully that helps you to have a better understanding of what we're doing to support our customers, Nathan. Okay. All right. So next up, let's go ahead and go into, I guess, the next display, guys. And unless anybody has any other questions on the XG49 WCR, again, to recap, let me go ahead and just recap that one more time, that the price point for this one is going to be coming in at price point that is going to be coming in for that monitor is going to be $999.99, so essentially $1,000. Okay, and usually in terms of kind of time frame to market, when we kind of release it to our channel partners, you're usually seeing about 15 to 30 days in terms of kind of its availability cycle. So in terms of when it's getting ready to hit the retail channels, regardless of where that might be. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and go over into our next product, which is going to be the MB17AHG. Okay, so MB17AHG, this is going to be a really cool update that we have. Let me go ahead and bring up the notice here for this guy. It's going to be another monitor, but it's going to be a portable monitor. So this one's going to be a pretty cool update. It's another one that we actually first came out, I believe, announced at a CES time frame, right? And the cool thing that we have with this display is that this is going to actually be Frank Castle, no OLED. Well, we don't have anything new this week that's OLED, but we already have tons of OLED monitors. We have a 13-inch OLED, we have a 15-inch OLED, we have a 27-inch OLED, we have a 32-inch OLED, and then we have a 42 and a 48-inch OLED. So we actually have a lot of OLED monitors. So there's quite a bit of OLED monitors. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the next one right here, which is going to be for the ZenScreen MB17AHG. So this one's actually a pretty cool monitor. I'm really excited about this. Let me go ahead and bring up actually some of the images for this one first and show you what we got going on here. All right, so with this guy, the name kind of already starts to tell you a little bit what's going on, which is that this is going to be a 17-inch display, so quite a bit bigger than I'd say their traditional portable displays. So we already have portable displays that start off at 13 inches. We've got 14 inches, 15 inches, 16 inches. If you guys also remember previously, I also just talked about the monitor that's just getting ready to come out, which is also even our biggest one, which is a 24-inch. So we really cover a huge range in terms of the actual options that we have available. We break them generally down into kind of two series where we have our ZenScreen and then we have our ROG or ROG Strix series. And with the ROG Strix series, they historically, one of the biggest differences has been much lower response times and then also much faster refresh rates. But I think we're starting to see that refresh rates are now becoming more prevalent in terms of just users wanting that in general devices. So not just gaming devices. And so we've actually been putting high refresh rates into things like our laptops for actually a number of years now. And you're also seeing that with things even like in our ZenFone line and other products, and you're seeing this kind of across the industry. So it's exciting here to now have this be a 17-inch full HD 144 hertz portable monitor. So now some of the other cool things that we've done is because we've really been a market leader in this space, we've kind of continually taken the lessons learned of feedback from users and how we can kind of keep making the experience better. So one of the really cool things here is this brand new what we call kind of integrated kickstand and L design. So this L design is built in it's built into the actual portable display. And the benefit is that it actually can rest at multiple angles and it's actually offset. So instead of having, let's say, like the inputs be directly on the monitor, they're actually here on this base. And the reason why that's advantageous, and they're actually on both sides, is that when you actually line it up with something, the cable isn't obstructing it or blocking it. It has much easier access so that you can plug it in and line it up really cleanly and really nicely. So if we go ahead and also see, one of the other cool things about doing this new design is that it has like an integrated level of flexibility. So you can kind of go and use traditionally angle it up towards you like the normal monitor. If you wanted to tilt it so you can kind of look down at it, you can do that. And it also does have integrated rotation support. So you can do landscape or orientation. So if you wanted to prop this up vertically for like code, email, social feeds, Discord chat, any stuff like that, you could do that. You could totally go that route too. So you got a lot of flexibility in terms of what you do. We also are integrating our tripod mount, and so the tripod mount works with the stand that we've also now released on the market. So you could actually really kind of set this up more like a traditional monitor, and then have even traditional height adjustment available to you. So a lot of flexibility in that respect. And you can see right here actually how nicely it just lines up next to your product, right? Where you don't have that cable kind of working against you, because it can literally go right up against it. And so that's something that's really just a clean, well implemented. And as I noted right here, you've got one connection right here, and then there's another connection on the other side. So regardless of whether you want to go left or right, whatever, you're good to go. And that USB-C does support alt display signal. So that means that if you want to connect this to like a laptop, if you want to connect it to a phone, a tablet that supports USB-C alt display, then it will work with that. But there's also an HDMI on here, so that means it'll work with anything. If you want to connect this to a console, a phone, a desktop, a laptop, it doesn't matter. If it has an HDMI output on it, you could plug it to this monitor and it would work. So you have both options available, USB-C for display and also HDMI for display. A lot of flexibility in that respect, okay? That is that tripod mount that I noted. And you also do have a 3.5mm jack right there for either headphones or line level out for speakers. And there you can see what I was referring to. And it's quite reasonable. This is going to be less than 3 pounds, I think it was about like 2.8 pounds approximately, something like that. And thinness, it's quite thin also in terms of, at its edges, I think it's something like 7mm. So it's quite thin. Let's finish taking a look here at some of the just key general spec that we've got for the unit. So I think I already noted that 17 inches, 1920 by 1080, 144 hertz, the integrated L-shaped kickstand, the tripod mount, USB-C, and HDMI are all present on this display. You're also going to have, this model does have our new display widget center. The display widget center software I'm a really big fan of. So again, I think I have it here from on my laptop that I'm streaming from. So let me see here. This is the older actually version of the software. But the experience is somewhat similar. So if I can actually show you, you can actually see what it looks like. Because the benefit again here is you don't have to physically touch anything. You can literally just use this software, and you can adjust things like the brightness, the contrast, the sharpness. If you actually want to have different profiles that you want to toggle back and forth between, so like a gaming or an sRGB mode, if you want to actually share or import different settings, or you want to even use things like our app sync profile, which is pretty cool. That means you can actually customize the application to a specific visual preset. So like if you're in your browser and you want 100% accuracy, as opposed to like you're watching something on the Netflix app and you want it to be maybe a little bit punchier, a little bit brighter, you can do that. So it's quite convenient. As I noted here, different levels of options that you have available to you in terms of how you can orient it. And like I said, there's also that integrated portrait or vertical display option as well. So lots of choices that you have available to you with the MB17AHG. All right, guys. So that covers this display. It'll be coming out again, not too distant future, and coming in at a price point of, again, let's go ahead and bring back up our primary price point right here. And you will see it will be coming in at, let me remove that for you guys, $350. So $350 will be the expected MSRP for the MB17AHG. All right. All right, let me go ahead and see if we have any quick questions that might have come up there. So Michael says, would have been cool if it had Wi-Fi. So yeah, Wi-Fi would be great. It would add even more cost. We do also, though, have truly portable displays. So again, already within our MB lineup, if you want monitors that have actually like wireless display support, we already do have that can work for Windows, that work for Android and for iOS. So you can wirelessly mirror content to the display. So we already have models that do support that feature. Okay. Marcos is asking about Wi-Fi 7 routers. Nothing to update you on, but in the not too distant future, make sure to keep it tuned. We will have some updates on our Wi-Fi 7 series routers. Okay. Justin Chu, hey, yeah, from J Customs, goes, is you can adapt any HDMI display to wireless with an HDMI wireless adapter. He actually does make a great point. They are a little bit more expensive, and you can't even, if you really want to get crazy, you can get some of the millimeter wave wireless adapters, which essentially have outstanding, that's literally almost effectively no latency at all, and they can legitimately be used for gaming. I have used those, and I have actually even used that with something like a portable display, and they can work, but it is something you have to kind of get additionally. Yeah, but that is a great point. Thank you, Justin. Hey, Mr. Matt Lee, fantastic to have you here, man. I think you would probably be a fan of this portable display that we talked about, right? Ooh, great. Somebody's talking about it here is I finally managed to find a supply of 5-pin optical mouse switches for our mice. That's very cool. Yeah, so Omron is probably the most standard one. There's tons of course, other standard mechanical switches that you can already use in so many of our mice, whether it's the Chakram, the Gladius, the Aimpoint, right? So many of our RG mice already support something that we call as the push-fit socket design. So you can literally swap switches from TTC, from Huano, from Omron, from Cherry, right? There's so many different companies that you can go ahead and customize to find out what's the one you want, a little bit softer, a little bit harder, right? A little bit crisper, a little bit louder, a little bit softer. It's very, very cool. So that's pretty cool that you went ahead and did that, right? All right. ROG Spotlight anytime soon? No, not anytime soon. Sadly not. But hopefully maybe sometime in the future. Okay. All right. Next up, guys, let's get ready to talk about it right here. It's going to be the Prime AP201 TG edition. This has kind of been not really that big of a secret because I already talked about it quite a number of times in the group, and I showed actually already images off it once we already confirmed that we were going to be coming out with it. But that is now set. It is complete. So we will be coming out with the TG edition in white and in black. So exactly the same exact that we have for the current models, both white and black. There'll be a little bit of a difference ID wise where we have a little bit of the print finish on there that denotes Prime, and then of course the tempered glass side panel. So otherwise it is still the same fantastic chassis that it already is, and I really say fantastic because I really do think it is a great chassis. If you guys want to see some amazing builds, Mr. Matt Lee has done a fantastic set of builds in the AP201, and actually not only the tempered glass version but the original version. Snef, who I think is joining us here in the chat right now, also did a fantastic build for us in the AP201 as well, showing it off with custom water cooling. And that's really the great thing that you get with the AP201 is that it has such a level of flexibility in terms of how you build with it. You know, when The original model has 57,000 micro perforations. Of course, now you have less because one panel, of course, is now going to be the tempered glass. But you've got your USB-C connectivity, 2 Type A ports that are going to be on the unit. Tons of internal space here that is really, really laid out. So you can fit up to a big 360 millimeter radiator in there. So you can go with something like our Ryujin 2, our upcoming Ryujin 3, the Ryu, or you can go with a custom, of course, water-cooled setup, and you're good to go. You can fit tons of fans down here. You can have, of course, your optional fans here. This bracket can be removed, and you can also adjust the PSU bracket, so you can fit big graphics cards. Technically, on our website, we say that it fits up to about a 4070, which for us is already a big graphics card where you can fit up something like our 4070 Ti. But if you actually bump this PSU bracket up and were to use something like our more compact chassis, our compact PSUs like our Tough Gaming PSU or our Loki SFX LPSU, you can fit a 4080 or a 4090 inside the AP201, which makes it incredibly flexible in terms of really offering you outstanding performance in a 33-liter chassis. You can literally build a true flagship level gaming system in every respect when you talk about the cooler, the CPU, the motherboard, the graphics card, all inside of this, and be really still quite capable in terms of the thermal airflow that you're getting here because there's so much inherent ventilation, right? So very, very cool in that regard. You can see right here with the tempered glass side panel, you have this just nice little embellishment right there with Prime, and then it says ASUS Prime Chassis, right? You've got your nice integrated routing paths for your cable management with some, of course, nice hook and loop fasteners. And then, of course, the cable right there, which loops into the power supply because the actual connection is back over here. So that needs to go into the PSU. Some optional storage mount right there that you have available to you. And that's pretty much it. And of course, if you want to be able to go a little bit bolder and brighter, well, guess what? You can go ahead and go with the white edition. Also right there, this is actually a dust mush filter. Some people ask, like, why isn't there more dust filters? And the reason why is that with these 57,000 micro perforations already, having a dust ingress is actually really not that much of a factor. And actually, if you were to put mesh on top of the micro perforations, you could actually be affecting the overall kind of the thermal performance, right? And so really the goal here is to maximize thermal performance. So we didn't want to put a lot of filters in here, which would ultimately be redundant and negate the experience that you're attempting to achieve here. You can see you've got the white model, you've got the black model, so both of these, and you can even see the included fan on the white model, it's white, and on the included black model, it's also black. And the cables inside of the white model, guess what? They're also white, they are now black. So we pay attention to those details, so you don't see that white cable, instead of seeing a black cable, you actually see a white cable, so it's pretty nice in that regard too. All right, so that is going to be the Prime AP201 in white, and then the Prime AP201 in black. And again, you can check out some fantastic builds that we have in the ASUS PCDIY group of these builds. And let me see, I think I might have one right here. Yeah, let me go ahead and show you guys as just an example. So this is a build right here in the non-tempered glass edition right here, but you can already see just how nice it looks in terms of being able to put together a nice, bold, bright performance system that looks fantastic. And now you can, of course, have that tempered glass side panel, right? So again, this is the 360 millimeter ROG Ryu cooler in there with an ROG Strix Micro ATX based motherboard. And right here, I think this is going to be our 4080. So you can already see right there, technically, even though we said only fits up to a 4070 Ti, you can see already we put a 4080 in there because if you adjust it, you can make it work. So you can see right there, big graphics card, performance system, it looks great. You pair that with some nice cables, man, and you've got a really, really nice build, okay? So that is going to be the AP201, again, in white or in black, the choice is yours, okay? Nick315 is saying, any idea for the release window for the Ryujin 3 non-RGB? We went ahead, talked about that actually in the PCDIY group and in our featured stream. So our target right now is going to probably be the very end of this month, moving into June. So next month for the release of the Ryujin 3. As we actually are getting ready to release it, we will actually have our featured announcement posts in the group, and this weekly stream will cover that. So you're aware essentially of like which models are coming out first, when they're coming out, the price points, and all that information. So the model you're talking about is probably, you're referring to the Noctua edition, so the models that come with the IPPC based fans. So make sure to just keep it tuned and we'll let you know, okay? So Mr. Matt Lee says, it fits a Noctua 4080, and that's a winner in my eyes. Yes, and for reference, everybody, if you're considering the Noctua 4080, I don't know if I still have images of the Noctua 4080, but the Noctua 4080 is literally one of the biggest cards you can get on the market. Because let's take a look at this, guys, right here. This can fit in there. This is a 4.3 slot graphics card. It's absolutely huge. It's a massive graphics card. Again, it's the coolest and quietest 4080 that you can get on the market. It's a truly impressive and performant design. So yes, even the Noctua can fit in the AP201. Okay. All right. Okay, so that is going to cover us for the AP201, and recap there just on the pricing for you guys. Let me go ahead and touch on that. Again, the AP201 in white will be $95. Okay, and then it will be $90 for the black. So you essentially have two models available to you, the white and the black. That's what, $5? $5 difference between whether you want the white model or whether you want the black model. Okay. Okay, so that is, I think, all of the new products. But now we're going to quickly touch on just a little bit of news right here. So give me 1 second to bring up the next item here. So give me 1 moment. Hey, Nick said, just joined the group, didn't know existed. Fantastic, thank you. Really, really happy to have you there in the group. And again, if you ever have any questions, you'll see essentially that like announcement that I just noted right there. We have it. I release it pretty much almost every week because we almost have new products that get released every week. It's pretty extensive product portfolio that we have. But for sure, if it's not in the new featured announcement, anytime we do release a new product in terms of channel availability, I do release it in the group, so you'll have available there. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to tag myself or also Jake LaRue, who's the other admin there and also a fellow ASUS colleague team member. So either one of us, you can also go ahead and tag. And I also do have a link in the group that you'll find for our product release calendar. With our product release calendars, we try to give you visibility on products that we've announced, but we haven't released them yet. And a lot of people are kind of always wondering, it's like, hey, when's this going to be coming up? When this router or when this monitor or when's this mouse or keyboard going to be coming up? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and now get into our next bit of news right here. So if you guys were not aware, of course, Nvidia did make their announcement to go ahead and denote that they will be actually coming out with their next generation of Ada Lovelace-based graphics cards, right? So their next generation, essentially 4060 family. So as you know, we already, of course, have the 4090 series, we have the 4080 series, and we have the 4070 series, and now we are going to have the 4060 series. Now, there's still a bit of time before the actual official, essentially, partners can go into full complete detailing, but we actually have gone ahead and put a partial live website up for our current products that we are initially confirming that we have available. So I do want to go ahead and just give you guys a little bit of a teaser right here so you guys can essentially see what we're going to be doing in terms of 4060 Ti. No essentially full specifications for you, just wait and you'll be able to find out that information in due time. But as you can see right here, we will have our ASUS GeForce RTX 4060 Ti. We'll have a tough gaming version, which of course will be a triple fan design. So following pretty much what we did similarly in the prior 4070 series. It's going to look fantastic. It's going to be cool. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be built using our ASUS Auto Extreme production process. And it's going to be a great option for those of you, especially if you want to pair it with a tough gaming product. But again, doesn't matter what motherboard you have. It's a great choice to be able to go ahead and throw into a system, especially I think with the performance and feature set that the 4060 Ti will offer. It's going to be a really solid upgrade if maybe you're coming from a graphics card from 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Maybe you're building a brand new system and you want to hit that kind of proverbial sweet spot, right? Like where you want to be able to run high image quality settings. You want to be able to jump into 1080p, high refresh rate gaming, 1440p, even high refresh rate gaming, 1440p. Very solid option. Plus, you get things like that modern, updated media engine, 8th gen media engine with AV1. You're going to have, of course, the latest generation Tensor cores, latest generation RT cores. You're going to have DLSS 3 support. So there's a lot of cool stuff that kind of been baked in, right? Next, we will also have a return to the very popular dual series that we've had now for this 40 series. So we will again have the dual in white. We'll have the ASUS GeForce RTX 4060 Ti in white. This is going to be a very compact based card. You can see really complements the design of our Prime Series motherboard, or if you have a white themed motherboard, I think a really great choice, and a really nice choice as well for those of you who might be maybe more compact builders. So again, if you're building in something like an AP201, or maybe even go into a smaller mini ITX based chassis, and spaces at a premium, but you still want something that's cool, quiet, and performant, this is going to be a great choice for you. So you can check out the dual series. And just like in the 4070 series, we will also have the, let me go ahead and, do I have it there? I think I have it. Let me see. I thought I had it in there. Yes, we do have it there. So let me go ahead and bring that up. Give me 1 second here. We also do have the dual in black. So we'll essentially have white or black. So the Tough Gaming will be available triple fan, and then the dual series will be in white and black. So your choice, and again, both going to be cool, quiet, and compact. So more details to come. We'll probably have a dedicated stream just on the 4060 Ti. We'll talk about, you know, all the things that we normally talk about. So, you know, about like the clock speeds, power limits, thermal performance data, you know, what you can expect in terms of the card's temperatures and acoustics. What's the difference between the dual model and the Tough Gaming model? Are we going to come out with an ROG Strix model? All that stuff will be covered in the dedicated stream. So we'll get you covered there. All right. Masar is speaking of new products. Are you going to be talking about the ROG Ally? So actually, I did a great little interview yesterday with Talk About Tech. You can actually find it at Talk About Tech's Twitter. I think it'll be released actually on Friday. Plus, we had a great full live stream, and our team on the ROG Pulse actually covered it yesterday. So you can probably go ahead and check that information out if you're interested in finding out about the Ally. If you guys really want to know about it, it's technically not considered a component product for us. It's considered a system product, so it's actually under our system product team. So our system product team covers, of course, our laptops. It covers our phones, covers our desktops, our gaming desktops. They cover all the finished products. And the Ally, because it's a full finished product, falls under that group. And I generally work with our team under what's called our component group. So that's going to be for all of our components. So that's everything from servers and workstations, routers, to motherboards, to graphics cards, to keyboards and mice and headsets, and all the things in between there that are all part of our component business group. If you're really interested, though, let me know. If you want to go hands-on with it, maybe we can do some cool stuff to hands-on, maybe also kind of integrate it with some of our other component products, like maybe external monitors or another monitor or headsets, even mice and keyboard, because that's a really cool thing. If you guys don't know, I'll give, you know, the 2-minute coverage here on the ROG Ally. If you're not aware, it is our essentially next generation gaming product, right? Is a full Windows handheld gaming device, which is using AMD's latest generation Z1 based chipset. There'll be 2 models. There's essentially the standard model and there's the extreme model. It's pretty crazy because you're talking about a product that can have either 6 cores and 12 threads or 8 cores and 16 threads. Uses RDNA 3 graphics based on the Zen 4 architecture, 608 grams. Has a very impressive screen. It's the only actually gaming handheld on the market that has 120 hertz screen, 100% sRGB covered. It's bright, 500 nits. It's got the Victus-based display with DXE coding that's going to be on here. Some really cool stuff that's there. Tons of mappability options in terms of how you can go ahead and customize the controllers. There's built-in array microphones that also have our ASUS AI noise canceling tech. It's got a PCI Gen 4 M.2 SSD support in there, along with the UH2 class card reader that's in this model. Lots of really cool stuff there. It's got RGB lighting because, hey, it's got RGB lighting, right? Our dual fan design right here, which is really impressive. And if you check out the initial impressions, one of the really coolest things about here is actually how cool and how quiet this thing is, even when you talk about the different performance modes. That's actually one of the really cool things too, is that you can tailor this. We have a lot of options for power options, everything down from like 9 watts to all the way up to 30 watts. And then you also even have the turbo enhanced modes, which even give you a higher wattage if you're connecting it to the AC adapter. So, you know, everything from playing like Ori and the Blind Forest to Shredder's Revenge to Forza, right? To if you wanted to jump into Fortnite, right? You know, that's literally the gamut that you can run on this device. It's really, really cool and really impressive. And something that not that many people have covered on these fans, I don't believe that there's other manufacturers. We're using high quality FDB bearings that are on here, which are great because they also, again, have better lifespan depending on any angle that you're using them in. They're smoother and quieter. And we even have dust filters. You don't see it in this image, but there's actually dust filters that are in there to help to kind of protect this. Wi-Fi 6E, again, a rarity amongst these type of devices, going to be great for low latency gaming or cloud-based gaming, or for just downloading your patches and your updates. Bluetooth 5.2 that's in there. Really actually good speakers on this model as well, with a dedicated smart amp per each one of the speakers that have been tuned. And a lot of other cool stuff. So that's the ROG Ally. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because, again, it's not our product. It's not my product that I focus on. But if you're interested in there, you can keep it tuned. All right. So any which ways. Let me go ahead and does it come with an extra? I wouldn't worry. I'm not sure what you mean about the fans. There's not extra fans in there, but I will tell you that we have actually designed it so if users do kind of want to at least be able to kind of, I guess, access the inside, if they want to like clean the fans or if they want to replace their M.2 SSD, it's actually quite a bit simpler than some other handhelds are on the market. But for this type of product, for most people, the reality, of course, is that they're just going to be using it as is, right? It's kind of more like a laptop in the way that you think about that, right? Is you're not necessarily thinking about opening this up and doing something to it. For most people, probably three things you might do. You're maybe going to add that micro SD card, or maybe you might use the XG mobile dock, right? So that you can actually have external graphics support. So if you even wanted to kind of go and connect this to a bigger monitor, right, or to a television for like, you know, even a higher level of gaming performance, that's probably also one of the other really cool things that exist with this model, is that you have the flexibility to be able to essentially connect an external dock, right? So let me see right here if I have the image for the external dock. Yeah. So the external dock right there, as you can see, we actually have three different versions of the dock. We have one that's the 3080, one with the 6850, and then one with a 4090. And so you could literally connect that in there, and then you could have not only higher performing graphics, but you can have up to 2.5 gig Ethernet. You got more USB ports, right? You have an advanced card reader that's on there. So it's very, very cool. And even in that in itself is actually, it's pretty compact. So even if you were to kind of travel with it, you could do that. But again, because it's a full essentially Windows device, that also would allow you to kind of almost use it like the way you do a laptop. So somebody in theory could kind of just use the Ally as their computer, right? It's like, I don't need a computer. I could have my Ally and I could game with it. And then, you know, when I want to come back and actually do some typing, I want to be able to do some editing, I want to be able to work on my system, I can just connect the XG dock and I'm good to go. All right, guys. So that pretty much covers that. We're going to go ahead and be wrapping things up here pretty quickly, but I want to be able to go ahead and quickly touch on some of the ROG Spotlight items. Our PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So give me 1 second right here. Just bought the, let me see right here. Nick said, just bought the Crosshair X670E gene to replace my Maximus gene. Wow, that's a huge upgrade, man. That's crazy, because the Maximus gene, that's actually was a really cool board. It was one of my favorite gene boards. Back when we were still trying to push a little bit more from that, you know, the community adoption for micro ATX has never been super strong, and we tried to kind of design and develop some boards, and this gene actually was purposely done because we had so many people say, hey, you guys should make more, and still not necessarily, I think, seeing the adoption that we would really love to see, you know, but I know that people that have adopted into the gene, they've been really, really happy with it because it's got so much performance and feature set for a micro ATX board. It looks really cool. So maybe one of my personal favorite boards on our AM5 lineup. So that sounds like it's going to be an awesome build right there, all AMD. It sounds like you're going to put in a high-end system together there. So man, best of luck with the build. And like I said, if you check out the beginning of the stream, I talked about all the updates you might want to consider in terms of the UEFI releases and everything like that, okay? All right. Oh, that's very cool because I saw you review it. Wow, man. Well, you've been with us for a long time. I really thank you for your support and consideration, man. Thank you so much. All right, let me go ahead and touch on here what I've got for our builds, guys. So let me go ahead and bring this up here. All right, so let's see. Our PCDIY Builder Spotlight, guys, is going to be the next item right here. So, guys, I think pretty much all of you that are watching us right now on the stream are already familiar with it. This is where we cover your guys' builds from the community, from our partners, from our Powered by ASUS partners, right? It doesn't matter whether it's mini ITX, ATX, air-cooled, or water-cooled. It doesn't matter, or somewhere in between. We do love to cover our PCDIY builds here in the PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So if you guys want to submit your build, all you need to do is be part of our group. Go ahead and submit the Google form and fill out those questions and let us know that you'd be interested in be featuring on the stream, and we'd love to be able to share your build. So what do we got today? I think today I've got a cool build from our friends over at EK utilizing Yule Beast's chassis for a very cool build that actually they released for May the 4th. So I think we previously showed off a pretty cool May the 4th build already. This one was another featuring, I believe, our Maximus Extreme series motherboard. So let me go ahead and bring up the links for this guy, and we can go ahead and take a look at it here. So give me 1 second here, and we will show this guy off here. So this is going to be EK. All right, here we go. So this is going to be from EK, and an UEFI chassis right here. I didn't put Star Wars there, but it is for the May 4th, right? Maximus Liquid Cool build right here. So that's what we got. So let's go ahead and take a look at this guy. Pretty cool build. So you can see right there, of course, you know, the vibes are already kind of right there with the prominent kind of, I think, kind of lightsaber-ish type of vibes that you see right there. I really liked it, kind of that cool, kind of the Rebel and the Empire vibe right there. So you got the blue and you got the red on display. Oh, of course, also, of course, I mean, realistically, if you're talking about you know, the Rebels, right? It could be different colors, right? You know, you could, of course, have Mace Windu style, where you could go, of course, purple, you could go blue, you could go green, you could play around with the colors, but quintessentially, it's that blue, and then quintessentially, of course, it's that red, right? But overall, really, really cool. Just, you know, it's different. One of the cool things of UEFI's, they're really doing some fun and dynamic designs when it comes to chassis, so it doesn't necessarily have to present itself in a standard orientation, right? And it breaks that convention of kind of always having to kind of look everything in kind of the same orientation. Now, there's beauty, I think, in the consistency of having kind of a uniform layout, especially when you take a look at kind of the lines and the way things are kind of designed. But at the same time, it's always cool to be able to see something that's different and distinct. And so this is really, really fun. A really cool layout, a nice use of space right here, where, of course, you see down right here. I think this is one of the coolest parts, where you can see, of course, the drives that they're inside of of the little pump reses, which is pretty cool right there. So giving the lightsaber vibes with each one of them right there. I thought that was pretty fun. And then right here, where you can see you have a little bit of that design work that's been put again on the larger pump and reservoirs, which is pretty cool. Then you can see the Maximus over here. It would have been kind of cool maybe to almost have like a little lightsaber in there, or then maybe use the little star. We have actually a spaceship effect that actually has like a little spaceship and almost looked like one of the X-Wings, maybe kind of flying by with a little star pattern. I thought that would be kind of pretty cool. Now we've got the video, and I'll see if in the video if they did something like that, but that would have been kind of cool to maybe do here with the pixel display that we have on the Maximus Extreme. I really love the choice to go with just a cool, clean block here, right? Not going with something that's visible. I really like the aesthetic right here. I think they work really well. And just this nice design language that EK has on these blocks, I think really kind of, again, complement the overall look and feel that you've got right here. Now, the fans, this is really choice. They're bold and they're bright and they give you that full coverage lighting, but I almost wonder if maybe something that might have had like an infinity line to it or something like that, maybe from the NVIDIA series could have maybe been a little bit more there, but I kind of like how this gives it a really nice, let's say just like glow to the top and to the bottom. So I think this was the better choice to kind of go with, right? But again, it would have been kind of interesting to see, because here, these have a little bit of a different line pattern, I think, than these guys, right? But overall, very, very cool. And also, it's cool to see that they didn't go with like RGB on the memory, right? They went with just all black dims, which I think kind of gives it, again, that nice balance in terms of feeling a little bit kind of maybe more, you know, futuristic, but not futuristic, right? You know, teched out, but not teched out, right? It's this interesting kind of balance out between the two, right? So giving it a different angle right here. Here you can see the different angle, looking really cool. Again, here, anime matrix not lit up. I would have loved to see the anime matrix lit up and have a little bit of a pattern there that I think would have complemented the whole build. I think that would have really even kind of taken it further, but fantastic job. Really, really cool layout. I reached out to EK to say, hey, do you have more images that we could share, we could dive into? And they actually still haven't edited them all, so we weren't able to kind of dive in a little bit further, but I think this overall just shows one of the really, really cool builds that they did. I really like the way they did this one. So pretty sweet right here. Let me just see right here. So feedback is going to be, what are we thinking right here? So Mr. Matt Lee gives some Stranger Things vibe coming in strong here. I can see that. Stranger Things vibes, yeah. Maybe not creepy, though, like Stranger Things, right? That would be kind of interesting. We got some feedback, like a work of art. Getting some Borg. I can actually see some Borg vibes, but hey, if it was green, then it would be super Borg vibes, right? Yeah, for sure, right? Nick315 says that is super clean. It's definitely really, really nicely done, right? Michael notes, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I agree. I don't mind Star Wars. I actually totally like Star Wars, but I'm a bigger Star Trek fan than I actually am a Star Wars fan. And then also, if anybody likes sci-fi out there, it's all about the Babylon 5 too. And are you excited for the upcoming animated feature? Not a Star Wars fan, but love the way it's built. Lots of lights that make a flash. A fight scene by the eyes. Nice build. Love it. Right? Very, very cool. Michael gives us some feedback here. Clean build, unique design, looks good. And then Michael says, ULBeast makes great cases and this build is amazing. I would agree. Let's go ahead and quickly just take a look at this video, guys. And I'm going to drop the link in the chat. So, of course, you guys want to share some love. Here's where you can see where they actually got the little drives, which is pretty cool, where they put them in there. You can see in those little reses. I thought this was a really kind of cool little touch, right? You can see it actually right there. That's pretty cool. They put in the DIMM.2 drive. You can see right there how they added in a little bit of lighting right there. So that's a cool little element right there. That's also kind of fun and interesting and dynamic, right? Now, this is also one of the cool things. I really love this pattern finish right here on the motherboard, and I feel like that in itself actually has a little bit of Star Wars kind of vibes to it, where Star Wars has a little bit of that kind of old tech, new tech type of vibe, where I would have loved to kind of see this. And again, maybe seeing like this the OLED live dash display actually have like an animation, right, and then have the anime matrix. I thought would have been really cool. And then maybe just keep the graphics card slit and have that one hard line more like a lightsaber kind of coming up and down. I thought would look really, really cool, as opposed to the vertical mount that you went with here. But two entirely different approaches, and there's no right or wrong here. I think they both look fantastic, but again, you can see all the room and the flexibility that you get within this ULBeast chassis. It's pretty cool. The great thing is here, you know, they put together the whole video. You can see how it comes through. I also really love the soft tubing, that they didn't do hard tubing. I think soft tubing is very much Star Wars, but then at the same time, like, hard tubing could also very much be Star Wars. So kind of part of me goes like, they're both equally Star Wars. So I don't think that you had to go with one or the other, right? Then you can see them, of course, filling up that fluid, right, or the coolant there that you've got for the build, right? And then they're seeing that whole system come on. So again, the only bummer, I really wish the anime matrix would have came up on display. I think that would have looked really cool, especially like I said, if you had a little like just zoom, right, that classic little zoom, right, come on, or like I said, had even the little star pattern that we have in there. I think kind of could have worked pretty well, right? So overall, pretty cool, guys. Let me go ahead and drop that link there in the chat for you guys. And if you guys want to give them a thumbs up, we're going to give them a thumbs up for sure, because our friends over at EK did a great job with that build. So all right, guys, so let's go ahead and take a look here at our next build. So give me 1 second. So this is going to be from, give me a second here. This is going to be from Guilo, I believe. It should be how we pronounce this. And he has a very cool ProArt based workstation. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So ProArt doesn't usually see as many featured builds, but it's still one of my favorite series that we've got. I'm a big fan of our ProArt series, and again, this is actually was featured by our friends over at EK. Very, very cool build that they featured from one of their members in their community. So let's go ahead and take a look. Of course, first shot right here, you can see up our Power Up Your Imagination, which is kind of the tagline that we've got for our ProArt series boards. You can see, of course, the cool block at play in there, right? And as we pull back, we can actually see the system. Really, really cool. It's a bit different, right? Because a lot of times I think when we're seeing kind of a more traditional kind of content creation type of build, you see it definitely within a chassis. And then usually the chassis tends to usually be not kind of RGB kind of heavy, although you definitely do get creators here. So here, this is pretty cool because they went with an open frame type of setup, which is pretty slick, right? It's like show off the hardware, but not go crazy in terms of everything, in terms of the aesthetic, just be able to appreciate the design that is there inherent to the product, which I'm a big fan of, right? We spend a lot of time on the ID styling. You can see these really nice accents that normally you wouldn't have visible to you, right? You wouldn't see this nice little kind of translucent layer right here. You wouldn't see the nice little actually anodization and the brushing that we do to the actual heat sinks right here that are visible. I really do like the actual heat sinks where they match that with the aesthetic right here, where instead of going with traditional DRAM and having its heat sinks, they went with the EK heat sinks that really just perfectly complement the look and feel there of the block, right? I really love the kind of the quick disconnect type design right here, again, for simplicity. And I also love that soft tubing run right there, again, with just that classic kind of, it's that ZMT life, right? Where for me, so many of my builds, when I'm going to do water, I don't like hardline. There's nothing wrong with it. It can look fantastic, and if that's your preference, it's great. But I enjoy the performance that you get, which is going to be the same. It's easier to deal. It's easier to adjust. It's easier to maintain. It's less expensive. There's literally no downside for me, in my opinion, minus just the aesthetic preference that you might have. So I really, really like that. They went with a vertical mount. Nothing wrong with that vertical mount. The only thing I would say is that for a creator, that's a little bit of a bummer though, vertical mount, because a key thing that you do miss out on is now you're blocking slots, right? So now if you wanted to have easy access to upgrade maybe a slot, if you wanted access to maybe some of these secondary headers, if you wanted to install another M.2 SSD, you're literally going to have to remove the graphics card to get access to that, right? Whereas if you have it traditionally mounted, you might actually have maybe one or two of those slots actually available to you and other headers that are available to you. So it's part of the reason why I don't recommend for most users they go with vertical, but if you like the look and feel, it definitely has a cool, clean, kind of consolidated aesthetic because it's more uniform, right? From kind of the top to the bottom, right? And it's a nice, tight vertical mount as opposed to having a little bit more of a separated kind of vibe to it. So very, very nicely done right here. Love right there, the kind of the 3D printed, of course, fighter jet that you've got there. You got your card reader. You've got, it looks like a 3D printed little memory card, right? You got your camera, and then you got the Lumen display right there all set up. Very, very cool. I mean, this is a really just nicely done laid out setup that you can see from a creator that's using his system for what's intended for work, for productivity, but is actually nicely showing it off, right? So pretty cool. So HO Computer says, Mr. Matt Lee's kudos on your Pro build, outstanding pixels visual. Yeah, so if you guys haven't seen, we'll probably be featuring that, but Mr. Matt Lee just did an awesome build, or actually I think he did the ProArt based motherboard with our ProArt based graphics cards. And I didn't bring it up here, but I think this build would have looked even more awesome with a ProArt graphics card, especially if he would have done it with a vertical mount, right? So I'll show that graphics card off there in a little bit if you guys want to see what it looks like. Vitor says he loves the look. I agree. It looks really, really nice. Nick says this definitely looks like something that can be wall mounted. I would definitely agree with that. HO Computers throwing some love for quick disconnects. That's right. It's for the win. I definitely am a big fan of that, right? So Miguel Santana says, great build, custom cables would have been nice and cleaner. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you could. I mean, there's such minimal cables that you're running right here. This is already a very clean cable. It looks quite nice to me. I don't think that would really benefited. Same thing right here. And this one, it's almost barely visible. And I guess, what would those cables be? Would you go black, or would you maybe go with like a black and gold, right? Maybe like a slight alternating pattern just to give it a little bit of, you know, splash, a little bit of kind of color block pop and contrast. Yeah, I don't know that you'd have to go with a custom cable, but I could see where maybe you could enhance it, maybe just clean it up just a little bit, right? And I think that if you actually added it, that the interesting part would be maybe you wouldn't want to pull the cable in so much. Maybe you would actually want to allow the cable to have a little bit more of a natural rounded bend to actually show off the cable to kind of supplement the visual look and feel, right? So that could be an approach, right? That could definitely be an option right there. Robert, hey Robert Media, fantastic to have you here. He's saying, is that the Prime Z690-A? It's actually the Prime Z790-A, so the actual newer version of it, but they look very, very similar. Yes, and it's actually one of my favorite boards. I previously had our Maximus Extreme here, and so I kind of swap it out, I change it out, kind of do some different setups on occasion, but yes, this is our Prime Z790-A. Michael says he would have gone with gold cables, right? And then Nick35 says, Mr. Matt Lee going to check out the ProArt build with the Ryujin 3 after the live stream is over. All right, so fantastic build right there. I think they did a fantastic job on it. It looks really nice. Let me just go ahead and show you right here. If anybody was wondering about how the ProArt graphics cards could kind of look with the motherboard, and you could kind of see, compared to the FE is a great looking card, but take a look at that. It's like, they're perfectly matched together, right? You could just see how nice if you wanted to pair up the ProArt 4070 Ti or the 4080. And keep in mind, the other really cool thing about the ProArt graphics card is that they're still cool and quiet. And on top of that, features some really nice design details. Even the heatsink on the ProArt graphics card is all black. It's a really nice, subtle, premium detail that we have on the card. Pretty cool. All right, so that is going to do that. Maybe I can see if I can squeeze one more build in, guys. I've got to actually get ready for something here on my end, but let me go ahead and see if I can squeeze one more in, okay? Give me 1 second here. Okay, yes, I think we can go ahead and do one more. So let me go ahead and see which one we're going to highlight here. So All right, let's go. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Which are we going to go? So many nice builds. Just don't have enough time today. All right. Let's go with. Let's go with Mickey Ho and Project Powerhouse here, guys. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at here. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at Mickey's here. So it looks like Mickey here had a little bit of an upgrade. And so he was transitioning here. We can see from one card to another. So you can see, of course, the prior generation card to the new generation card. It's always interesting how people show off, of course, the vertical mount. For me, most users actually install horizontally. But I think it's just visually, it's always easier for people to kind of look and discuss a card when you talk about it vertically as opposed to the traditional horizontal installation. But it would look very different because this card, you don't see one of the key points of this card, which is the whole ARG light bar. And then this card, you don't see that it doesn't have an light bar. And then also when people talk about this card having a fixed color, there's no fixed color in the horizontal, right? The horizontal, it's an entirely monochrome card. But overall, of course, you can see the two generations. They're both great cards, very cool, quiet, and performant. Both the build quality and really the fit and finish on the 40 series is really next level. It's really a great card. So here we can actually see it installed inside the system. So wow, this is, as you can see right there, it looks very, very different already, where you can see just that beautiful card in there. I love that really just nice, clean, open design that we have with just that really nice chamfered edge. If you guys don't notice, a lot of people sometimes will refer to this as like a brick, and it doesn't look like a brick to me because one, bricks don't have chamfered edges, but then the other part is just this really beautiful opening where you just see that full, just dense fins from the large performant VRM heats, from the heatsink assembly, which is really cool. And then of course, when you light this up, you're gonna see the beautiful quad zone LED design that we have on the rear, which I think just gives it a little bit of a distinguishing look that's quite unique compared to other cards in there, right? Now this is interesting. We see they went with a Ryogen cooler, and then they're doing a push and pull. So generally in push and pull, it's really not that big of a performance benefit. I personally am actually not a fan of push and pull because one, it doesn't generally provide that much of a benefit, especially for a traditional radiator like this. I also find sometimes it can add turbulence, which means it can add a little bit more kind of shuffling noise or add a little bit more variability to noise that you can get within your system. So I'm not a fan of that. I also prefer the cleaner look of having more profile space to have separation between like the cooler and the top of the chassis. But you can also see that there will be a little bit of a visual enhancement here because you've gone with fans that have LED strips that are in the fan frame, right? So you're going to see these lines pop up here, and that's going to kind of be interesting. So we'll see actually how that looks. So taking a look at it from the side profile, you can see it's been laid in there really nice, no issues. They did actually use, it looks like the little included a GPU support in there in the back, which is kind of cool, just to stabilize it a little bit. You can see it's one of our new generation ROG Strix boards because it also has that really nice, of course, ejection mechanism, the Q release design, which is really, really cool. I like this little kind of color play right here with the white and black, which is done. Now, of course, when you close this up, you're not going to see any of these cables, so I'm not going to really say anything about cable management because the reality is it doesn't matter. As long as you're not physically obstructing anything and the cables are not correctly connected, you're not going to have any issues. So you're going to be good to go. Okay. So gives us actually a rear shot right here. It's all wired up and pretty much it's all hidden. So again, it's not really much of a factor. I do though, when I do my builds, I try to put the cable in there and I'll pre-wire this, and then I'll maybe sometimes put a little bit of like a tape or something like that to just hold the power connector in place here and here, so that if I ever do put in something like an SSD, I don't have to pull out all my cables. I can just go ahead and connect my drives and I have the cables there, and I'll even pre-leave SATA cables or something like that connected so that if I did want to connect that, I don't have to go back and wire everything up, because keep in mind your SATA cables are going to be right back behind here, behind the graphics card, right? And here we go. We have it now lit up, and actually it looks pretty cool. It's got a really different vibe to it, right? Because this vibe that you have with the fans has these kind of hard, kind of angular light patterns to them, which are pretty interesting. And actually they really fit this kind of quad LED design that we have actually on the Strix card. So you got that nice just little light up display right there. You can then have that nice quad zone LED strip that's running around through the entire 4 zones of the card. Nice bold white LED right there, and then from each one of there. So it's pretty cool. You can actually see how it kind of comes together. It works. It's got a different vibe. It has a little bit maybe of a more kind of tough, edgy, kind of technical vibe to it, because I think those lines are a little bit more rigid, right? They're not necessarily as soft as you might see with like in an RGB fan that has something like that. Now, one thing that I will say, and I don't know what your guys' thoughts in here, I might have not put a fan here. And the reason why is because this lighting zone is, I feel, being washed out by this fan. This would have, I think, looked a little bit cooler to create like a little isolated spot, and also you would get less reflection from this light on the Ryogen. So actually, I probably would have pulled that fan out and just kept that spot so that it could shine a little bit more, and then the display that I have on the Ryogen could have popped a little bit more. The other way that I might have played with it is also kept the fan, but maybe gone with like a fan frame for RGB lighting. So gone with like Fantex's like Halos frame that would have given me a little bit of a soft RGB outline, but not gotten so heavy on the internal part of the light, which would kind of bounce out a little bit. It still totally works. I think it still totally works, and it looks really, really good. Cable management's on point, but if that was me approaching the build, I might have maybe taken it just a little bit differently there. Okay. And there we can see it with some RGB lighting. And there you could see maybe the value of keeping the RGB lighting the way that he did, where you can definitely see, what do you think? What do you guys, would you go, do you like it more with that light, or you like with the RGB? The RGB is pretty cool too, though. With this pattern, it looks pretty slick too. I like this little kind of little alternating pattern with the gradient, where it's like, you know, pink and purple, and then like the blue. That's pretty cool too. And then he's got rainbow down here. That's pretty slick. That's still a cool pattern there too. So let me go ahead and bring up his submission form for Mickey here, and I guess we can show kind of the two vibes of it off right here. Okay, so again, this is Mickey, and this is a Project Powerhouse. And let's go ahead and take a look right here. So for Mickey Ho, not his first build, and it wasn't a sponsored build. Does the build have a theme? It's two-tone RGB zone for something interesting in terms of the aesthetic. I would agree with that. What are 3 words you would use to describe the build? Is performance, airflow, and RGB. Definitely. The build's name is Project Powerhouse. In terms of the core components here, we've got a Core i7 13700K. We've got an ROG Strix Z790-E gaming Wi-Fi, an Ryogen 2 360, and then we have an ROG GeForce RTX 4090 OC model, so pretty much the best of the best that you can get for a 4090. Then he's running some G-Skill Trident Z RGB memory 6400, and he's got it overclocked to 7000 MT, taking advantage of that really nice memory controller in the Raptor Lake series of CPUs, along with the very good overclocking support on our ROG Strix motherboards. Then he's running a Samsung 980 Pro, and then also an XPG SX8200 2TB, and then another Kingsman Gaming 2TB. So he's got 5 terabytes of SSD space in there. Fantex Revolt power supply, 1200 watt, and that's all inside the LanCool 3 that he's got it in there. And then the fans, 6 from Valkyrie, the X12 fans, yes. So 9 total Valkyrie fans, and then he's also got a Fantex M25 140mm DRGB fan, which I'm assuming is this fan right here. That's the Fantex fan. Total build was about $4,500. What were they most proud of is that pure performance. I like the large airflow the chassis provides to give the core components the cooling they needed. Is there anything that they would change about the build? Is maybe consider going to custom water cooling? Not likely. No experience and afraid of water leaking. It's not really that much of an issue, especially if you go with a soft tubing. It actually would be really simple. To be honest, though, the debate is whether you should really do it. For 13700K, there's not really a benefit to do it. So unless you really, really, really want to just kind of a cooler system, you don't need to go to it. And it's a very simple kind of reliable platform already, which you're running. So you don't have to, right? And definitely would add a lot of cost to the system, right? The third one would be unify all case fans into one type of fan, so something maybe like the Uni fans from Lian Li. is an option that he said maybe. How long did it take together for him to put the system? It took about 3 hours to swap all the components from my old Lian Li 011 into the new chassis. And that's pretty much it. What does he use the system for? I do overclocking in my spare time and mainly enjoy gaming with my system. I'm also learning how to use Adobe, looks like I think Photoshop and Premiere on the productivity side as well. He likes playing Call of Duty, Apex Legends, Forza, and a couple of racing games. Very, very cool. And what's his favorite functions or features? Is he wants to give credit to the top performance for the 4090, especially the Strix card. I'm able to achieve over 3.1 gigahertz and low 60C temperatures with manual overclocking without custom water cooling. It's really impressive in terms of that. And that a big part of that is that thermal design, right? It's a custom patented milled vapor chamber design. It's extremely performant and very, very impressive. In addition, he's a big fan of the UEFI BIOS. Is very user friendly and it's always easy to use, and he really finds it it's very easy to navigate, especially also it's easy to design to enter my desired parameters very easily when I'm overclocking my system. Very, very cool, man. You did a great job, Mickey. I like it. You got a definite thumbs up from me. Let's see some feedback from here. Mr. Matt Lee says, yes, LandCool 3, that is correct, right? So HO Computers, I think seeming similar feedback than I said. Mr. Matt Lee, for sure, the Fantex Halo Light as JJ suggested would have been nice too. So Nick says the rest of the build is understated, so that one super bright fan seems a little bit out of place. Yeah, that's, like I said, a little bit where you could kind of maybe do that. Erica gives some love though in terms of actually the lighting scheme right there. So I'm not sure if it was for the single lighting scheme or for the RGB lighting scheme. And then Mr. Matt Lee gives a slim Noctua Chromax on the rear fan would have ticked the box for me. I would also like that approach. If you had to go through a rear fan, if you wanted to have it for the quote unquote exhaust, right, then that's the route I would have gone. Like I said, just something more neutral or something flat to allow that, like I said, IO section, which has a little bit of lighting, has a little bit of reflectivity, to have just a little bit more room, and you would also maybe reduced a little bit of that glare that would be happening there for the screen, right? Yep. All right, very, very cool, man. So that goes ahead and wraps out our stream for today, guys. Very, very cool. Thank you guys, as always, for joining us for here on the stream. If you guys have any other questions, comments, or feedback, then feel free to go ahead and join us in our ASUS PCDIY group. You guys know where the link is at. It's in the description if you guys are checking us out on YouTube or on Facebook. If you're checking us on any other channels, you can go ahead and just search for ASUS PCDIY group and feel free to go ahead and join us there. If you have any other questions on any of the other products, I believe we've gone ahead and dropped links in the chat for all of them, so hopefully you should be able to see them there. And as always, make sure to go ahead and keep it tuned weekly to the PCDIY stream if you want to find out about the latest and greatest from ASUS, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the group. So with that, take care, take it easy, and best of luck with your builds. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye bye, guys.